This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
James Onieal. He is the lyrical gangster of all things aviation job related. Welcome back to the show, James.
Thank you for having me.
They've done it.
Thank you for having me.
The news has done it. The airlines have done it. Somebody has said the F word.
You know what the difference between a depression and a recession is, right?
No.
Uh-oh. Recession's when your neighbor loses their job, but depression's when you lose yours.
Ooh. Pilots around the country are shaking in their Roper black shined up boots. Nobody knows what to do. We've come to you, our diamond dog, in the business. So tell us what's going on here.
So quick poll. Do you guys think they should be panicking?
Well, I think to put it in context.
Well, it depends on where you. I mean,
yeah.
if you're like if you're in the bottom couple percent at Spirit, I'd be pretty concerned. But
all right, why would you be concerned?
Well, there's no need to panic. Listen, we're pilots. We don't panic. We react. So, no one should ever be panicking. You may be changing your strategy, perhaps your outlook in the business, or maybe what your plan is, but panicking is not warranted in any sense.
So there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and there is a lot of news coming out basically almost daily at this point, and it's really jerking people around because you're getting basically 2 weeks ago Aero announces, hey, we're ceasing operations. A week later, UPS gets this brand new contract and they're going to hire 300 pilots, and they haven't hired anybody effectively in the past year and a half, 2 years. And then like 3 days after that, Spirit's furloughing. So if you're somebody that this is kind of your first I get everyone says, like, you know, hey, I went through coronavirus, but everybody was bailed out for coronavirus. So that's not really a fair comparator. That's not a 2008 recession. That's not September 11th. That's not the Gulf War I. That's not the 87 stock market crash. That's not deregulation. And the key difference between every one of those events that I named and this event is every one of those previous events, coronavirus, the 2008 Great Recession, September 11th, Gulf War I, the 87 stock market crash, passenger demand dropped. Every single one of those, the furloughs were because passenger demand dropped. The only number people need to be tracking right now is the TSA passenger numbers. And if you take a look at them, we are right back to where we were in 2019. If demand is there, if passenger demand is there, if people want to get on airplanes and go flying, that means there's a job for you to find. 2008, 2001, there was no job in aviation. When I got laid off in 2010, I got turned down from a Verizon store for selling cell phones because I didn't have enough retail experience. And I had a flight school turn me down because I didn't have enough dual given. I was an instructor at Riddle. I was a Part 61 instructor. I had flown to 2 different regionals at NetJets at that point, and I was on the safety committee of the union at NetJets. But I didn't have enough dual given time, so I couldn't teach in a 172. Now, what we're talking about is folks are going, I don't want to go be a regional pilot. I don't want to go to NetJets. I don't want to go to FlexJet. I'm going to have to wait to get an interview at United, Delta, or American. United, Delta, and American are only hiring for retirements, right? That's the conversation we're having right now. And the reason why people are panicking is really because for a majority of the people, they're not greedy, they're not stupid, they've just never been through this before. And so they don't know what to expect. They don't understand why it's happening, and they don't know what to do next. Wheels Up just announced this past week, hey, look, we're stopping new hire classes. They're saying to people in interviews, hey, when you get to a check ride and you bust the maneuver and they go, you have two options. You can continue the check ride or you can stop. Yeah, Wheels Up is basically doing we can continue the interview, but I don't have a class date to give you, or we can stop right where we're at, which is super transparent and amazing that a recruiter would actually say that, right? I mean, for the recruiter, it would have been recruiters, it'd be easier to just go through the interview and go, hey, let me just kind of run through the show. That way there's no conflict here, and then we'll deal with it in the end, right? So people are seeing this news up and down and up and down and up and down of a little bit of positive and a lot of bit of negative, and a lot of bit of negative gets a lot of people on the internet whipped up and freaking out. So they're focusing on what they think is going to happen next instead of just getting a job.
Okay. So, James, for those of us that are listening right now that actually are at Spirit, which, it's hard to know how many pilots will end up being furloughed because of attrition and everything else. They're saying it's, 260 right now. They do have to take some action right away, right? Talk to those folks for a minute and say, okay, if you are actually potentially on the chopping block, what should I be doing right now?
Okay, so 2010, I'm in recurrent ground school, and this is not an exaggeration. The ground school instructor is handing out the written test for us to take on the last day, and all of a sudden you hear, how you go to a baseball stadium and you have a wave? Well, instead of people throwing their hands up, it was, what the fuck is this, going across the room? And it was because we all got about 3/4 of the class got emails that said, you are being laid off. Ground school instructor was not told that was happening. So now he's confused. He hands the test, goes, hey, everybody just take the test. Let me go get some executives. Take the test, hand it in. They come down, right? So you get that initial shock. You get that initial shot of adrenaline, that initial shot of cortisol. You're panicking. Your brain is cutting out. You're going, how am I going to make my mortgage? How am I going to pay down my student loan debt? What am I, all these thoughts are going through your head in that immediate moment because you weren't, even at NetJets, we had, Spirit has their issues for different reasons that NetJets did, but basically at the time, I was sitting at home not flying, right? We were parking airplanes, and so you kind of had an idea, but there was all this up and down messaging from the union and the company that was like, we might pull it out. Hey, there were voluntary leaves. There were things folks at the company were doing, and on the union side, they were trying to save our jobs. So looking back, when you're outside of it, you go, hey, I was definitely going to lose my job. But when you're in the middle of it, you're basically holding on to as much hope as you can that by some power vested in me, somebody's going to come in and save the day, and you're going to keep your job. So even though in the back of your mind, and then for some folks in the front of their mind, they had an inkling or an indication or a pretty good idea that they were going to get laid off, it still hits you like a ton of bricks when you actually get the message, and because were they going to lay off 100? Were they going to lay off 700? So there's some people right now that are taking a deep sigh of relief and going, oh, it was only 260. That's not me. And there's somewhere around 260 people that are going, crap, I got to do something now. Now, we've been working with Spirit folks prior to this, so there's a lot of guys that are already a month, 2, 3, 4 months ago got the ball rolling, right? So they're ahead by a certain amount. And then you got the people that have been kind of surviving on hopium that, hey, this is all going to figure itself out. They're the ones that kind of go into full-on crisis mode, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the first thing you have to do, or that I would recommend they do, is you have to get your support structure together. Because what happens is when you get hit with that stress, not to get too techie or too sciencey with it, but the front part of your brain, the executive functioning portion, that just shuts down. You can't make decisions because you're overwhelmed. So it could be a husband, it could be a wife, it could be a mentor, it could be a friend. I recommend 1, max 2. You don't want to go out and get 50 people because you're going to get a bunch of conflicting opinions. But you need 1 or 2 people that can hold you accountable to what you're going to do every day. Somebody that calls you at 9 in the morning and makes sure you're actually getting up out of bed. Somebody that, and I know this sounds really, really stupid, but it gets hard to take a shower. It gets hard to shave your face 2-3 times a week, or however many times a week you shave, right? It gets hard to force yourself to go outside, right? In the United States, anytime you meet someone, you get asked 3 questions. What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Option number 3, if you don't have an answer to that question, it's a problem, right? And if you say pilot, people go, who do you fly for? That becomes a complicated question when you're getting laid off. So a lot of people avoid going outside. They avoid talking to other people because there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of embarrassment that goes into this. When I got my layoff notice, I hate asking people for help. I hate it. Hate it. I don't want to inconvenience them. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to dump my problems onto their shoulder. But the reality is, when you run into a situation like this, everybody and their mother wants to help, but you have to be the first one to reach out and ask, right? Because every one of us that has a job that's not getting laid off right now has either been laid off before, so we understand what it's like, or we're sitting there going, shit, if it was me, I hope somebody would help, right? There's a lot of people trying to put positive vibes into the universe because they may need some of those to come back to them here in the future. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to start gathering information. LinkedIn is a really good resource for that. Facebook is as well. And if you just give me a second, I'll give you the groups that I go on Facebook in terms of if folks want to get information or give information. But airline pilot interview questions and answers, the guy who's the admin of that group just started a post yesterday that said, hey, let's help Spirit pilots out. Everybody that's hiring, list the company name that's hiring and how many, what's going on there. You have RTAG. You have the Pilot Network. You have a couple of different groups. There's a Reddit flying group. But those are groups that you can go on to start getting information quickly over who's hiring, because that's really what you need to know. You don't want to, when you get a furlough notice, you don't want to waste energy applying places that aren't going to consider you, because for the most part, most of these people need a job, right? Some people are going to be ahead financially. Some people are going to have money in their savings account. But for a lot of people, especially folks that are just getting started out, especially if they have student loan payments, they're not really that far ahead. They can only afford so many weeks or months out on the street not making money. The advantage today versus a coronavirus or a 2008 is there are jobs to get. Like, you can sit at home and kind of wallow in the grief of it all you want, but there are jobs to get. Right now, that's a waste of time. It really is a waste of time. Like I said, when there's a demand issue, that becomes a lot more problematic because now you're thinking, do I have to leave the industry? Do I have to go back to school? Do I have to get a different certification? If you are a pilot right now, there are jobs for you to get, and there's actually a decent amount of jobs for you to get. You may have to wait a little longer than you wanted, but pretty much every regional on the face of the earth right now is looking for direct entry captains. This is where we get into the ego component. And this is where it becomes really important to have the right people around you. The biggest barrier most of these people are going to struggle with is their own ego. And I say that as someone myself, that when I got laid off, and you realize, shit, I was flying jets for, it was 2010, so I was only making $90,000 a year. It's basically poverty level wages, you know what I'm saying? But, you go from making $90,000 a year, and you walk into a cell phone store, and somebody goes, you don't have enough retail experience, you don't know what to do. Right? Now people are, some people are going, should I go to a regional as a direct entry captain? Is that going to hurt my resume because I'm taking a step backwards? Okay, I was a Spirit FO. Should I go to a NetJets, or should I go to a FlexJet, or should I go to a regional airline as a first officer? Is that going to hurt my resume? Some people are going, should I go become a flight instructor? Here was the thing that I didn't understand until after I went through this process. I get laid off from NetJets. I went in and I interviewed for a job flying a TBM as a mentor pilot. I got shot down. And it was between me and another guy. The other guy got it because he went, I'll be on call 24/7, 365. I went, I want 24 hours heads up notice on a trip. It was the only difference. They hired the other guy. He severely regretted being on call 24/7, 365. Doug, if you're listening, man, sorry you had to go through that, buddy. But when I went through that interview, I got shot down for the TBM job, but I did so well in the interview that the guy that owned the flight school and management company said, would you like to be the director of operations? So when Doug showed up to work 2 weeks later, I was his boss. Right? When you go into an interview... No, absolutely not. I listened to
Doug, we have a trip in 5 minutes.
Doug, you need to get to the airport. ASAP.
And then that's exactly what happened. Doug and I were talking about how to get Doug out of being on call 24/7, 365 because I felt bad for him. Doug's actually a great guy. He really is. But, imagine Doug's surprise. He walks into the office and he goes, what do you do? Because we saw each other on the interview, right? So he walks in the office and goes, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hey, man, I'm your new boss, right? So the point is when you go and interview for a job, right? I understand it's different when you're interviewing for an airline job, but there's people that can interview for non-airline jobs too. They're going to go into corporate operators, so on and so forth. You're not necessarily just interviewing for the job that was listed on the job description that you're sitting in front of. They might have other positions for you. We just we're hiring a bunch of folks right now. I just had to hire some new administrative staff, and we're hiring some folks to fill out the applications for clients on our behalf. I had people apply to that administrative role that were way overqualified for it. And I called them up on the phone. Some of them are, once again, probably listeners, and said, hey, look, I think you'd be a better fit over here versus there. I had one person interview for the admin role, did so well, I had a higher level position that they're going to be better for. You never know when you walk into an interview what other opportunities they have. Do not walk in the door selling yourself short thinking I'm just interviewing for this slot. There could be 3 or 4 or 5 other positions. The easiest example of that, think about an executive jet management, think about a Solaris, think about a jet aviation. You go in, you interview, that account doesn't like you, that chief pilot has 10 other accounts. Do not walk in that door thinking you're just interviewing for the job you're interviewing for. There's other opportunities out there.
That's a good point.
And so when you start thinking about that, right, that's where you start getting the energy to fight. But the biggest thing that I didn't understand until after I went through this process is I got a job opportunity flying a Citation in Ohio. I got a job opportunity flying Phenom in the Middle East, and I got a job opportunity being a director of operations for a flight school in New York City. The jet job in Ohio, great, but they weren't flying a ton, so I didn't know if I was going to be on the chopping block 2 months later. The one in the Middle East, Eileen basically said, hey, look, you want to go move over to the Middle East, make sure they have direct deposit. I'm not going over there with you. So there were some family things where it was like, hey, it's not going to work. Some of the countries I was going to be operating in and out of probably weren't going to be too friendly to people like Eileen. And the whole concept of her walking 3 steps behind me and always agreeing with everything I say didn't really fit her personality either. So, so I took the job running the flight school, and honestly, all of my friends, or I can't say all, but a lot of the people that I worked with at NetJets said I was an idiot. They were like, dude, you went from flying a jet to being basically a glorified flight instructor. It's going to look horrible on your resume. You're going to have a bunch of Cirrus time in your resume. You should be applying to these jet jobs. They ended up sitting at home collecting unemployment for about 6 or 9 months and then became regional FOs. So now they had this 6 or 9 month gap on their resume and then had to go take basically the same effectively entry-level job that they would have had to take if they just did it right off the bat. I went straight to the flight school. When I applied to every other place after that, they went, whoa, you went from being a NetJets pilot to going to be a director of operations of a flight school. Your ego's in check. We'll give you a shot. People respect that. They respect that willing. So, like, if you're a Spirit guy and you decide to go be a direct entry captain at a regional, or you decide to go be a regional FO, or you decide to go be an FO at a NetJets, or you even decide to go be a flight instructor, people respect that. Work is work. I don't care what the title is. Everybody that's going to interview you after you take that job knows the sacrifice you took, the sacrifice you made to take that job. It's going to make you stand out, and they're going to respect you for it. No one's ever going to look down at you for taking work. Don't limit yourself. Don't hold yourself back. Don't let your ego get in the way of you being successful, right? The least amount of employment gap you can have, the better. So if Spirit lets you go and the only thing you can get is a job flight instructing, take it. You're better off being a flight instructor than someone sitting at home. That's the biggest thing that I just didn't fully appreciate until I went into interviews after that. And people are like, whoa, you didn't sit at home. And I was like, no, why would I do that? Well, here's a stack of 500 resumes of people that did that. And that's why you're sitting here right now. So.
I did the same. You know what? I did that, James. Got laid off 2009 and waited. and tried to find another job. Had a great interview with a flying, could have been a CFI in a King Air, like, which would have been good time, great experience. But I've been flying jets.
Yeah, it's not a jet, man. Can't do that.
It's going to look weird. People are going to question my move. And so I passed on it. And, looking back, that was a big mistake. And waited for the next good thing to come along. And you're right, man. If you're out there and you're working, something is going to come to you. But it's going to be a long, hard, and painful process on your bank account and your ego if you hold out for that golden opportunity.
The other thing with the work is it gets you in front of live human beings, and it gets an answer to that question number 3 of what do you do? And you'd be surprised. People underestimate how important it is to be around other folks. I'm gonna modify this story a little bit to keep the person anonymous. But a client went in to go get a haircut, and they're sitting there talking to the barber. And barber, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? I'm a pilot. Oh, that's weird. The next person I have that I'm cutting their hair is a pilot too. Our client goes, well, oh, cool. Where do they fly? I don't know. So as they're getting their hair done, the next person comes in and the barber introduces him, chief pilot at a major airline. Chief pilot goes, hey, man, pleasure to meet you. Do you want to stop on by and get a tour? Right? You don't know where you're going to run into people. You don't know who you're going to run into. You don't know, and I'm from Jersey, so who's cousins with who, right? Who's, who's somebody's, godmother, godfather, whatever, right? You need to be out in front of people. I don't care if you take a job on a ramp at an FBO, you're going to run into pilots. And the great thing is, people don't have to do that right now. It's not coronavirus. It's not 2008. They're going to get a flying job. But they do have to get their mind wrapped around the concept of a job is a job. Go take one that keeps you in a cockpit. Most of the jobs right now, I can't say all, but a vast majority of them pay a really good wage. Right? When I left NetJets, I was making 90. When I took the flight school job, I was making 60. Everyone else focused on the $30,000 pay cut I took. Meanwhile, they're on unemployment making $1,600 a month. But, when you're on unemployment, you can sit at home on the couch. You don't have to face anybody. Right? It's more comfortable when you're in that situation to just collapse, crawl into a hole, and don't come back out again. But, yeah, you might take a pay cut. You might not. It depends on if you go in and be a director. You might take a pay increase if you go become a direct entry captain, depending on where you were and how much you were flying. It doesn't matter. Find something that you can afford to live your life on. Put it on your resume. If you can't afford to live your life on it, go take the job that pays you the most amount of money and cut your expenses back. It is what it is. But the sooner you get work on your resume, the sooner you're going to get a better job that pays more. It is just how it works.
So what are you hearing, James, right now amongst, with United saying they're just kind of give us a rundown of what the latest is you're hearing from everyone.
The biggest difficulty, and look, we're talking to everybody, right? So I can't give the entire breadth of conversations that we're having. So I'm going to generalize this a bit, and not go into each individual company. But when you take a look at the major airlines, what folks are losing sight of is the hiring that's happened over the past 2 years, where you're effectively seeing, between United, Delta, American, and Southwest, it was around 700-800 pilots a month that were getting hired. When you factored in Spirit, Frontier, UPS, FedEx, Atlas, that number jumped up to about 1,100, right? So that's why you're seeing 13,000 pilots being hired per year. That, which, by the way, is an astronomical amount of hiring. That's the next closest year was 5,000. It's not. That was a ludicrous amount of hiring, right? That said that people were like, "Oh, it's going to go on forever." You're like, the day that started, we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
That massive hiring was made up of two different reasons. One was growth, right? Airlines they're taking on new airframes, they're growing their operations because of passenger demand. The second variable was retirements. Well, the growth is slowing right now, not because of demand, but because of aircraft availability. Well, they still have to hire for retirements. So folks are looking at like, oh my God, the United's investigating the FAA, or the FAA's investigating United. Well, yeah, they got to do something because the media keeps picking it up. But friggin' Southwest just had a cowling blow off an airplane the other day, right? You think Delta hasn't lost a tire off an airplane anytime soon? Like, there's nothing going on there that's not going on everywhere else. It's just, what did the media catch on to right now? So people are blowing that out of proportion. There's then, you see stuff like United goes, hey, we're offering people voluntary leaves of absences. They've done that every year for the past 15 years. It's a 1 month optional, hey, if you want to go take a early summer, go knock yourself out. Well, because that's being taken in context of everything else that's going on. It's, oh my God, are they going to furlough? So the FAA is looking into them, and now they're doing a leave of absence. Are they going to furlough? No. I mean, no. It's just, it happens every year. So people are taking information out of context, and then they're correlating it and going, oh my God, this is an indicator that things are going bad. United is still hiring. American is still hiring. Delta is still hiring, right? Southwest, not hiring. But we won't know till the end of the year what that looks like for them. Southwest is in a unique position in that they've got to be very careful on what Boeing is and is not able to deliver, right? And, Max, as you may know, Southwest pilots apparently like to work. So you start stacking too many pilots sitting around and nobody can get additional trips and pick up stuff. It's gonna piss people off. So so Southwest has their own unique situation that they have to look at, right? But American's hitting peak retirements next year. It's over 700. United's just starting their acceleration towards peak retirements. They peak out in 2028. They still have to, even if they don't grow, if they take 0 Boeings, 0 Airbuses, they still have to hire for the retirements. Regionals, last year, 500 jets parked. They're parked because they don't have enough captains. Guess what? They need direct entry captains. Each of the regionals needs about 20 per month minimum, and they've been getting like 5, 10. They need direct entry captains. NetJets, they've got something like a 2-year backlog on clients they can take, or owners they can take on. Sorry, NetJets, I apologize for calling them clients. Because of, just how quickly they can get pilots and how quickly they can get aircraft deliveries. FlexJet, they're hiring. When you take a look at places like Wheels Up, right, if somebody is not getting, if they're not getting growth, right, then they've got to look at how many people are leaving. Not as many people are quitting Southwest. Not as many people are quitting Wheels Up. Not as many people are quitting Frontier. So guess what? If they're not growing and nobody's leaving, hiring slows. That's not, oh my God, they're slowing hiring, they're getting ready to furlough. It's, oh my God, the next tier up isn't stealing their pilots anymore. They don't have to hire. So you've got to find somebody that's either expanding. Regionals, they have jets that they can get, right? Corporate, they have jets they can get. Those guys are hiring for expansion, right? Then you take a look at who's hiring for retirements. There's going to be legacy airlines, Part 91 corporate flight departments. People are still aging out and leaving. As long as the passenger demand stays there, which it's there, you can go look at the TSA numbers. As long as the passenger demand stays there, hiring's not going to stop. And when you take a look at things like Spirit, if I understand correctly, and I apologize if I get this wrong, but they're deferring aircraft deliveries, right? Don't worry, somebody's going to take those, and then they're going to expand, and they're going to hire for that. Take a look at what happened with FedEx and UPS. FedEx gave up the USPS contract. UPS took it. They're now hiring 300 pilots, right? In this market, because the passenger demand is there, one company's loss will be another company's gain. This is not 2010, 2008, 2001. This is not a meltdown. It's a slowdown. It is a crisis of expectations. People expected that 1,100 pilots were going to get hired per month to infinity and beyond. And now we're only going to get 500 a month hired. There's jobs. Good ones.
So hold on, James. So you're saying we should not panic? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if I lost my job tomorrow, I would go apply and be a direct entry captain, and I would hold my head up high, and I would sit.
You would go find another one. I see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would, but I have the benefit of. I told this story on an episode with you guys a while ago, but I went through the experience when I got laid off from NetJets. I had an identity crisis, right? I cannot describe how embarrassing and shameful it felt to not have a job. We're out to dinner, me, my parents, and Eileen. Grammar school teacher walks in that I haven't seen in 15 years, but because of the way I look, I pretty much look the same as I did when I was 5. Hey James, how's it going? What are you doing? In visiting my parents. Oh, cool. What do you do for work? I'm a pilot. Eileen laughs and goes, "You're not a pilot."
Ouch. So
I had to go through the experience of sliding under the table, right, and basically trying to pick myself back up and figure out who the hell am I, and it took probably about 2 or 3 years to where I realized, who I am as a person is different than what I do for a living. Well, that sounds really, really simple, but as a guy that owns a career development company, right, who's helped all these people get hired by Legacy Airlines, who's helped all these people become directors of operations at Part 91 flight departments, who's helped all these people negotiate their salaries, right? And if I got laid off tomorrow, I'd go straight to a regional and be a direct entry captain, and I'd be fine with it. Because my responsibility is to provide for my family. It doesn't matter that silly little hierarchy that we have as pilots. An airplane's an airplane. If you're getting paid to fly it, congratulations, enjoy it. And if not, you'll do something else till you can. But right now, you don't have to worry about that. That's all in your head. If I had to get on a regional jet, or I had to get on name XYZ company that pilots make fun of because it's beneath them, right? I'm not holding my head low. I've got a job, man. I'm flying airplanes. I'm going to take that opportunity, and if I'm flying with folks that are younger that are less experienced, I'm going to sit in the cockpit and mentor the crap out of them. At least make it fun and enjoyable for me. Right? Like, you can take these opportunities, and I'm not trying to sound cheesy with this. Like, I'm saying this as somebody that had to go through it and figure out how do I take a situation that isn't what I thought, isn't what I wanted, and make it so that it's enjoyable for me. Yeah, start mentoring people, get involved in the union. Right? Go take a corporate job and go learn the customer service aspect of it. Go learn how to deal with conflict with people. You're going to learn something new. Enjoy it. But you're going to be flying airplanes. You're going to be paid well to do it. That's what you should focus on, not, oh my God, I'm flying a King Air, or I'm flying a Citation, or I'm flying a regional jet, not an Airbus. It's okay. Don't worry. You'll get back into one. If you want to. You might not want to. But if you do, you'll get back into one.
Let's take a time out from our conversation to talk about another friend of ours, Timothy P. Pope, who's a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance strategies for professional pilots on the Pilot Money podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Okay, what about, like, just in general, if you're at Spirit and you're seeing downgrades, you're seeing it, maybe you're not going to get furloughed, but you're more like, man, am I in a place that has potential in the long run? Or how do you process that? Kind of as a, I don't know, what would you call a pilot that's remaining on the list, but sort of like questioning things.
Yeah. So I apologize for all the people that I may piss off by saying this, but you're lucky when you get furloughed because they made the decision for you. You're not having to sit there and agonize, should I stay, should I go, so on and so forth. And you're getting your head start on whatever the next place is you're going to go to. It's that second and third wave that really takes it in the shorts because guess what? The first guys that got furloughed, those are now your captains. They're now senior to you wherever you're going because you're following them afterwards.
Yeah, right.
When I got let off from NetJets, it was like, man, this sucks. Like, those guys are lucky. And you're like, no, because you got laid off. You're going someplace new. You're going to be making decent money, flying airplanes, gaining seniority, so on and so forth. They're losing seniority. guys that get down, and the downgrade, when you furlough, there's typically downgrades too. So you're talking 50% pay cuts. You're talking about getting displaced from your base. Now you got to commute. Now you're talking about costs going up because you're having to get a crash pad. Your flying goes down, so you're not getting as much. Their block hours are going down, so you're not going to be getting as much. I'll just call it overtime, just across the board to make it easy. Every company has a TFP green slip, whatever you want to call it, right? So the folks that are left behind have a little bit more of an agonizing decision because it's like, should I stay or should I go? The guys that got cut loose, they're going to end up with jobs. It's going to be okay. So if you're a guy that gets cut, congratulations. Now you start moving in that next direction that you want to go in.
The world's your oyster. Yeah.
Well, and the benefit that I had, so when I got laid off, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to run 110% in as many different directions as I could, because I wanted to get myself into the best possible position. That when NetJets called me back, I could make a decision: is NetJets the better option, or is where I'm at the better option? But if you don't go 110% to get yourself into the best position that you can end up fooling yourself that when Spirit calls back, you go, oh, this is a better deal. It might not be. It's just you just didn't push it hard enough to get yourself something better. So I ended up not going back after furlough. It ended up being a better deal where I landed. For me and my family, I had a better quality of life. I was making more money. I had way better health benefits. I had better benefits. The whole thing, I ended up in a way better position. So I went to the new thing that I went to is where I stayed. A lot of my friends went back. Just depended on where you ended up.
Yeah, Max gave me that advice. I remember when I got let go from a company. He's like, he basically was like, treat that job as it's dead. This is for a corporate operator, maybe where it's not so much like seniority based in furlough, but he's like, set that aside. That's behind you now. Don't be like, well, they could call back and
no, it's over.
No, and maybe just like it's over. Move forward.
Yeah, they're dead.
And if they call you back, you can deal with it at that point. But don't go sitting there. And I think that's solid advice for, like you're saying, you've just got to press forward as much as you can, and you'll see where the chips.
I interviewed at a. I'm not going to name the company, but I interviewed at a company right after I got laid off from NetJets for a flying job, and I made it all the way to the last stage. And they said, "Okay, we're going to bring you in. It's a formality. We're going to introduce you to the pilots, and then from there, pretty much job is yours." I got a call, no joke. 7 minutes later, it said, "Hey, just kidding. We changed our mind. We're going with another guy." I called my mother. She took every one of their products out of the house, threw them in the garbage. Those products have never been in the house ever again. When someone shoots you down or lets you go, they are dead. It's over. Let it go. Move on. Right? To this day, that happened 15 years ago. There is not one product from that company in my parents' house. She will not. Even if they give it to her for free, like on an airline, she'll throw it in the garbage. They're dead. It's over.
That's good advice, though. It really is.
And I won't name the company because I don't want to kill the stock, with the listener group banning them. You know what I'm saying?
James, we've got some flight advice from some listeners. Anything else you want to hit? Any other pearls of wisdom you want to dispense to the listeners before we jump into advice?
The big thing is, look, that support structure is really important. You got to have people around you that are forcing you to get up every day. For me, that's Eileen. Like I said, some people it's their parents, some people it's a husband, some people it's wife, but you have to have someone that holds you accountable every day to get up, put your clothes on, get up, take a shower, put your clothes on, and do something. Look, obviously, if they need help with resumes, if they need help filling out the applications, if they need strategy questions, give us a call. We can handle that aspect of it. But honestly speaking, the first thing is to get that support structure in place so that you keep one foot in front of the other every day, because you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows, and the rejection sucks. That's the hardest part to get through. Not everybody who's as fortunate as me. They weren't born with red hair and had to date in high school, so they're not used to rejection, right? But I don't care how many, it hurts to get rejected. That's why when we're working with folks, that's why they have a phone number they can call. Because when they get that rejection, their husband or wife will give them a hug. We give them a hug and go, hey, look, here's what you can do next. Here's how to do this. Here's who to talk to. Here's yada, yada, yada. So I can't overstate how important it is to have that support structure in place. You really need people that you can call when you're panicking to help keep you putting one foot in front of the other.
I've been doing that for
Okay.
Dylan for years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's my rock. He's my rock.
The butter
It is
for
true,
your
though.
roll.
But I'll tell you what, it is important, and like what you said before, James, not 7 people,
No.
1 or 2. Because
and-
you'll get a million different pieces of advice from pilot. Every pilot loves to dispense advice, and none of them necessarily are wrong or bad. But you just kind of got to pick what you're going to do, and then move forward with it.
The easiest way to explain what it's like to get too many mentors early on. So imagine you're going to go for your private pilot certificate, and every lesson you use a different instructor on landings. It's not that the instructors are giving you bad techniques. It's you got to pick one pony and ride it. Once you get on track, once you get to that point to where you're getting ready to solo, you have a second person step in and check you. You don't have 10 other people step in and check you. It's the same thing with mentorship in life. If you grab too many mentors, right, it's just going to get confusing because everybody's going to have a different take. The other thing that's really important, and this is something that we do when we talk to folks, you want to make sure the mentors that you seek out are not coaching you to do what's right for them. They're coaching you to do what's right for you, right? So magically, if you grab somebody that flew for XYZ airline, they're going to talk you down that path to go to that airline, right? Because it's what they understand. You need somebody who can listen to you, repeat back to you what you said in their own words, and then go, okay, here's the strategy on how to do that. It may not work for them. It may not work, meaning the person that's mentoring you, it may not work for them personally, it may not work for their family, but they're guiding you down the path that works for you and your family. When I got laid off from NetJets, I didn't have kids, so I could relocate anywhere in the country. I had a bunch of friends that did have kids. They couldn't. If I got the wrong mentor, they were going to coach me on how to stay local. I spread out my job prospects and ended up applying to jobs in other states. And that's how I ended up getting jobs much quicker than everybody else. So just kind of keep that in mind. Think about it like grabbing a new instructor for each landing lesson. It's not going to go well.
That's a good analogy. Okay. Speaking of mentorship and advice, we're going to have 2 mentors help you here. We've got Raven Careers and Eagle Careers standing by to advise.
My biggest competitor.
Yeah, you're one of your biggest competitors. We're looking to turn a profit this year.
Guys are
We'll see.
stealing market share left and right from us.
It's
over here.
exactly, yeah. Okay, I will read this one, and then we'll take advice from Max and from James. This will be good. We'll get 2 instructors for one landing. Okay, this comes from a JetBlue pilot. Says, currently working for a certain Blue Tail major airline. I have 8 years of seniority and am a recent Airbus captain. I live in base. The job has been awesome, and I'm happy here. Overall, day-to-day life is great. The past couple of years, however, have been filled with uncertainty. Recent blockage of the Spirit acquisition has left us in an unknown state. Couple that with the news of corporate raider Carl Icahn gaining seats on our board and aircraft delivery and Pratt engine issues. There is understood fear and doubt amongst the pilot group. We're seeing stagnation in seniority and career progression compared to other airlines out there. In the past few years, I've watched friends and colleagues leave for the legacies and seen them rocket up the seniority list. I try not to compare myself to others, and while I'm happy for them, it's definitely a bit deflating hearing your buddy who just got hired at a legacy is already a wide-body FO or captain in their base of choice almost out of the gate. Or another is celebrating their profit-sharing check and buying a boat. Ha. Well, here we're talking about displacements and lack of profitability. My question is, approaching age 40, would it be ridiculous to give it all up, start over at the bottom of a huge seniority list like AA, United, or Delta, purely because of company uncertainty? I live within 3 hours of NYC. Being in the junior base would definitely help my seniority, but the idea of driving to and being based in the NYC area sounds like an absolute torture. I also will absolutely not commute. My fear is missing out on the hiring boom now and going down with the ship if things don't turn around. The lack of good news during the booming time in the airline market has us all concerned for our futures. Thoughts?
FOMO strikes again.
That's right.
This is a risk discussion. So I'm going to talk about it from that perspective because there's a lot of people that are having this conversation. So you have let's, I don't know, use for example JetBlue. Right. So, per se, let's say you have a guy who's an 8-year captain. So when people run the calculus on this, they typically just run it from the perspective of what's the chances I get furloughed? And if you go back to the conversation we had a little while ago about Spirit, while that sucks, that's kind of the easier of the positions to be in because somebody else made the decision for you. As an 8-year captain, if JetBlue does a furlough, do you get downgraded to FO? Do you get displaced out of your base? Are you now, like, there's a lot of other liabilities that somebody as an 8-year captain at JetBlue has, right? You can use a round number of 20%, right? That's what they assume, in terms of furloughs. But what they don't then do is go, okay, 20% downgrades, right? So in this case, Spirit used a little less than 10% of their pilots, is roughly, I think, what that number works out to be. And if you notice, the amount of downgrades that Spirit is doing is basically equivalent to the amount of furloughs, right? So now you run that calculation. Okay, I'm an 8-year captain, probably not going to get let go, right? There's no guarantees in life, but as an 8-year captain, the probability that you're going to get let go is much lower. Okay, cool. So now what does my life look like if I get downgraded? Okay, if I was going to get displaced, where would I be displaced to? What do I think the amount of flying would be I would be getting, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the one side of the equation risk-wise. The other side of the equation is, okay, so where do you want to go, right? So if you're taking a look at Delta, if you're taking a look at American, if you're taking a look at United, and I'm just using those three right now because Southwest isn't hiring, right? And I'm just going to stick with passenger carriers to make it easy. Now you take a look at, okay, well, American's hitting peak retirements next year, right? Delta's hired a lot of young folks. United's not even hit their peak retirement yet. They're accelerating into it. Well, you can start to see that your risk profile is going to be a little bit different each carrier you go to, right? You could go to a United, effectively go into a direct entry captain role back in the New York, and he said he lives in New York, right?
No, I'm thinking he actually lives in Boston.
Okay, yeah, that's a tough one.
He said New York was a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, that's
right.
But yeah, he's not in D.C. So that's the tough one, right? Because the guys that live in Boston, right, that's a crappy commute.
Yeah.
And the drive sucks. You're not getting on a ferry, and the airline commute sucks. And it's so expensive in that area of the country, you're probably not flying a Cessna back and forth between Logan and JFK. I guess he could live in upstate New York as well. If he's in upstate New York, driving on the Jersey side down to Newark is a little bit easier. Just haven't been from that area. But anyway, yeah, you have that ability to potentially make a direct entry captain where you're not going to take a pay cut. Your schedule cuts, you're not going to take as many cuts in quality of life pay and schedule by making that move. So it just boils down to how they perceive the risk of if everything went bad and they got downgraded, would they rather live with that, or would they rather live with, hey, look, I want to go make the jump? And there's going to be a little bit of discomfort, but maybe you bid wide body, right? And you're doing less of that commuting. So does that make any sense in terms of how to look at that risk-wise?
Yeah, it's just such a hard thing to evaluate because you're trying to make guesses on the airline industry, which is historically very difficult to predict.
That's the exact opposite way of doing it. So people are trying to gauge it based on the win. I would encourage you to gauge it based on the loss, because you can't predict the win. You can't predict what's going to change in the future, but you can take a look at, if I was going to risk losing this by staying versus risk losing this by going, which one would be more palatable? Which one would be less uncomfortable? Which one would my family tolerate better? And that's the pony you ride. At the end, look, none of us will know until we retire and you look backwards as to what would have and would not have worked out.
Yeah, right.
But it's really, what are you willing to risk losing? And if you live in Boston and you go, the commute's really valuable, the not commuting is really valuable, and I'd rather be a senior first officer than a senior first officer in Boston than a junior captain in New York, then stay there, and if they downgrade you, they downgrade you. It's still going to be better than the alternative. But it gets you out. Having that clear why gets you out of that, yeah, but my buddy's over here as a captain doing X. No, you're exactly right. Commuting to an airport you don't want to commute to, flying an airplane you don't want to fly to, locations you don't want to go to. But other than that, you're right. And you're going to see, just real quick, you're going to see now that everything's slowing down a bit, there's going to be a lot of buyer's remorse of people that took certain jobs because everything was moving fast and everything was going up and to the right. And now what people are left with is a boatload of money to do something they don't want to do. And it turns out the money doesn't cut it.
Were you going to say something?
And then
Max?
I was just going to say, once you make that call and you sit down, you evaluate your options, and you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do, then stick with the decision. Don't look back. Don't quit looking, and reevaluating it 100 times. You're just going to drive yourself nuts unless there's something substantial that changes, right? The thought, and then maybe it's time to reevaluate. But I think that's what a lot of people do is they're like, okay, I'm staying. I'm going to do this, and then a couple months later, like, oh, did I make the right decision? Like, should I, and I think that's a good way to drive yourself nuts.
The clarity on the why drives that, right? So
Yeah.
So I know, for me, I know the schedule is really important. I know having weekends off routinely is very important. I know that the healthcare and the retirement are really important. And I know that the hours that I fly are really important. That's why I fly King Air. Right? I hate to break it to you guys. I'm not at a legacy airline because I can't get there. I'm not in a corporate flight department because I can't get there, right? Like, I'm fortunate that I have a lot of people that are willing to vouch for me. I'm flying what I'm flying because I've made the decision that that's what I want to fly where I want to fly it, not because I can't go do something else. But every time one of you guys goes, look at what I made last year, I do have to ask myself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And when I go, all I got to do is go, hey, Max, how many weekends, did you do this, or did you do this, or did you do this? And when you say no, I can sit right back down and go back to my potato salad in peace. If you don't have a clear why, when somebody else goes, look at this shiny thing over here, could be pay, could be schedule, could be quality of life, could be airplane type, I don't care what it is, right? Look at this shiny thing over here, you're going to chase it like a dog chasing a school bus because you're not clear on why. Anything you do, I don't care what it is, any company you go to, you're giving something up to be there. You're sacrificing something to be there. You're compromising on something to be there. Understanding why you're compromising that really helps you not having heartburn every day swallowing the decision you made.
Okay, I want to look at a different aspect of it. Elon Musk, one of the main reasons.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, he developed like self-driving and all this stuff is because he said being stuck in traffic is like soul sucking. Like there's something that just destroys you, and I can compare that to being in a small or shrinking base. That I was there in Los Angeles, in this base that was like trying to hold on, but they were like always contracting and cutting lines and cutting flying and stuff. That was soul sucking because it was like every month it was like more bad news and more bad news. It's like, yeah, I live here and I drive, 10 minutes there, but the deal just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And that to me can make it really hard, especially when there are people that are moving up in the other direction. So I think moving backwards can just be so difficult. And even if you are clear on the why, yeah, man, that can be really hard, the stagnation. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It does if the why is not strong enough.
Yeah.
And
the why better be really strong if you're going to be
yeah.
in a stagnant situation. That's my point.
Because so look, I'll just take the job that I'm doing. I mean, the pay increases that you guys have been seeing, or that airline guys have been seeing versus what it's not even the same ballpark. Like, we're talking $5,000 pay increases versus $50,000 pay increase. Like, $5,000 pay increase versus $100,000 pay increase. I mean, it's not even in the same stratosphere. And if you don't have a strong why, that's going to eat at you. I mean, that's literally going to suck the soul out of you. But when you get that burning feeling in the dead center of your chest, right? And you want to walk into a room and just scream at somebody, right? And then you go, okay, why am I doing this? And and I'm not being cheesy when I say this, for me, it's a family decision. Like, it's really important to me that I get to eat a certain way, that I get to go to sleep at the same time every night, that I wake up at the same time every morning, that I fly the same schedule every day. It's very predictable in terms of what days I work and what days I don't work. It's very predictable about what happens when something in the economy goes bad. We just keep moving on, right? And when I look at that, and then I can have conversations with Eileen and go, what is that worth to you? And she'll go, okay, good. So let's talk about if you went to XYZ company. Yeah, you would have all this over here, but you would give up all that, and here's what that cost is going to be for us at home. If the why is because the color of the paint on the tail, it's going to hurt, right? If there's other things that they're not giving you, or other things that you're not clear on that they're giving you that are important, yeah, you're right, man. When stuff starts sliding downhill, it hurt because you feel like you're dressed up like a rodeo clown every day, like you're the joke of the room. Everybody else is doing great and you're the idiot. But the reason it feels that way is because when somebody goes, I'm making $500,000 a year, you go, yeah, that's right. And I wake up at 7 a.m. every morning and I eat a nice warm breakfast and I just got my cholesterol checked and it's healthy because I haven't eaten in a terminal in 15 years. If that's not good enough for you, then what I'm doing isn't the right thing for you, right? That why has to be strong enough that when somebody turns to you and goes, I'm smarter than you, they're not literally saying that, but when someone goes, I'm making $500,000 a year, look at this schedule, what's effectively being received is, look how much smarter I am than you are. Look how much more sophisticated I am than you are, right? The ability to work through that is, I appreciate that, and here's why I'm doing what I'm doing, which relates to here's why what you're doing isn't right for me.
That's well said. Anything to add, Max?
No, I think he summed it up. That's good.
Find your why. That's good.
So in interview prep, that's why so many people have been having trouble. Because he's like, why do you want to work here? And they're like, I don't know. Because they're chasing status. Shiny airplane, bigger airplane, paycheck, right? And then you get there and you're like, oh, great, I'm here. And then something bad happens and you go, shit, why am I here? Yeah, you're about to find out right now.
All right, that was flight advice with the guru. What did you call him? The lyrical gangster of... I don't even remember what that was.
The lyrical gangster of career counseling.
There it was.
Yeah, that's...
You just dropped some rhymes. I have like 5 different sections I'm going to clip off into little videos, James. That was great. Folks know that if they need your help, especially if they're looking at maybe a furlough or making a pivot right now, we'll have all of your contact information, including your calendar, in the show notes. They can click and get on your schedule and seek some mentorship, as we mentioned. So appreciate your time, James. Anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Nope. I do appreciate folks reaching out. I do. It's taking about anywhere between a week to 2 weeks to get on our schedule right now, just because of demand. Do apologize for that. But we're spending about 30 to 45 minutes with each person that puts time on our calendar to talk with them to make sure we understand where they're at, what we can do to help, and what the right strategy is for them. Don't spend money before you know what you're tracking towards. It's a waste, right? You need to have a strategy. You need to have a clear direction before you start throwing money at the problem. So I look forward to working with you guys.
Are you going to join our book club, James? Are you going to read chapter 1 of Hard Landing? Have you read it before?
And all that. I do a 9-hour round trip drive per week, so I'm going to start listening to it audiobook in the car.
Okay.
All right, don't get ahead,
Good.
James.
Just read chapter 1, and then we'll discuss it. I think you're going to like it.
Yeah.
I'll put it on half speed.
Chapter 1.
All right, that is going to do it. James Onieal, Raven Careers, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Adios.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.